Hello, everyone. This is Katya. This is a pre-New Year interview with a trader who has received a payout. Today we have Alex with us. Alex, could you please tell us a little about yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do, who you learned from, and what you base your trading on. Let's get straight to it. No need to drag it out.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. I am currently 28 years old. I was born in Riga, Latvia. When I was 2, my parents and I moved to Russia. So basically, I speak without an accent and we're on the same wavelength. I'd like to tell you a bit about my education. To be honest, I mostly taught myself. I watched some clips on Instagram and YouTube. I also read some additional literature that I found in open sources. From all of that, I basically put together my own trading strategy, which I rely on when trading at the moment. And
What do you usually trade? What do you like?
in general, basically, I focus on trading, Forex, crypto, and gold. I mostly like crypto because it's volatile. You can get a lot of X's, multipliers. It also gives you a lot of chances. If you make a mistake, you can always re-enter a trade because your idea isn't always going to fail. Let's put it simply. And also, why I like trading Forex. Basically, currency pairs are accessible, easy to understand, and always moving. Often, I'd even say, according to certain patterns. Gold reacts to specific economic news, and in the same way, for example, it's not that hard to track some pattern you can work with.
Trading is your main activity. Or do you do anything else besides that?
Actually, at the moment, I work as a sales manager in the procurement sector, specifically wholesale. For example, building materials. It doesn't matter whether it's sand, gravel, things like that. We buy and sell to legal entities. And at my workplace, besides being a sales manager, I also a risk assessment manager, which gives me an extra boost, so to speak, when it comes to trading. Actually, by education, I'm a lawyer, but it just so happened that I went into sales while I was studying law. That also gave me a bit of a boost because studying at the law faculty taught me to be cautious, focused, and to approach things thoroughly.
That was actually my next question. Whether you need a specialized education to do trading, or if you can learn on your own or with the help of mentors. What's your take on this? What do you think? Can you share your own experience?
Sure, of course, I'll share. Why not? In general, the trading community, in my humble opinion, since I still consider myself a beginner on this path, is quite closed off by nature, and a lot of people, there are many people who don't want to share their experience because they think everyone will start using their ideas en masse. But in my view, to become a trader, you don't need to have any special or countless skills. It's enough to simply be diligent, hardworking, and let's say keep aiming at the same target for a long time until you hit it and secure your result. When you build your own truly effective trading strategy, you'll be able to achieve your first results, which might make you feel a bit euphoric, uplifted. But it's exactly at this moment that you need to wait it out a little so that overconfidence doesn't take over. And then you'll really see good results. As for mentorship and all that, to be honest, in my opinion, again, people who often sell training, who do mentoring, for the most part, it's all just a facade. I don't know. I have a lot of acquaintances who have fallen for things like that. It's basically a kind of scam, there's no other way to put it, where they promise you the world, but in reality, you just get some basic principles, basic information, which they sell at an outrageous price. So, if you really want to learn something in trading, all you need is a strong desire, persistence, and belief in yourself.
Listen, that's great. It's not the first time I've come across this opinion that you don't necessarily need any special education, just some basic publicly available knowledge is enough. What do you think about having some kind of mental edge aside from professional skills in this field? Maybe in this area we actually need some extra classes or additional training. Well,
In principle, that's a good question. If we look at it more fundamentally, that is, break it down into several stages. Initially, yes, I actually agree with you. You need to acquire some basic skills, and then you'll need to develop your professional abilities further so that my growth progresses just like your results in trading. In other words, in trading itself, maybe that's what it's for. Yes, indeed, you really do need a mentor who can guide you, calm you down at certain moments when you start to lose touch with reality, when your excitement begins to take over. For example, after a failure or say after achieving a desired result, like you hit your take profit and you think, now I'll go in again, I can see it. In such challenging moments, it would really be quite helpful to have someone truly by your side who can genuinely say, Listen carefully. You've achieved your excellent result today. You absolutely should sleep soundly on it. Lock in that significant result, and then, perhaps not even the very next day, maybe in about a week's time, you can open the chart again, look at it with fresh eyes, and clearly see your entire situation and effectively use it. When you start entering too many trades, trading just for the sake of trading, let's call it that.
Overtrading.
Yes, yes, overtrading. Your mental health really takes a hit. You start to think the market is working against you, and in such moments, it would really help to have a professional who can guide you, help you, point you in the right direction, and help you understand where your mistake is. That is, not to analyze it for you, but simply to help you understand, so you have some food for thought. And then you can work with it further, turning your failure or your victory, analyzing your unsuccessful experience, and gaining some benefit from it for yourself.
Earlier, you mentioned that you work as a sales manager with corporate clients. Maybe it's some kind of business to business? So, besides that, tell me, what other personal qualities or interests do you have? Activities, hobbies, maybe? Do any of them help you in trading? In other words, where else do you notice parallels? Maybe in sports or something like that? Many traders I've already interviewed have noted that sports really helped them. The ones they did in their youth or still do now, that it taught them discipline, and now this really helps them in trading. Do you have anything like that besides work?
Besides work, if we look at it more broadly, as you mentioned, including childhood and adolescence, I can't say that I was particularly inclined towards sports as a child, but I was very creative. That is, I took part in all sorts of theater clubs, literary evenings. I tried to perform everywhere I could. And actually, to take part in such an event, whether it's a play or a dance evening, you first have to learn the dance, memorize certain lines. So that also requires a certain amount of perseverance because if think about it. Remember in childhood when we were assigned to memorize a poem for literature class, for example, there were always two categories of students, those who crammed at the last minute with the book and those who studied in advance. Those who studied in advance would go up, recite everything flawlessly, and even prompted those who had crammed at the last minute. That's how it usually was. But here, if we can draw a small parallel, both groups deserve credit. But the point is, those who showed a bit more perseverance ended up with better grades. I think it's exactly the same here. Specifically, if we're talking about me, about the beginning of my creative journey, right now, at this moment, I go to the gym and do powerlifting. I'm also preparing for next summer's arm lifting competitions. At the moment, if everything goes well, I'll earn the title of Master of Sports in my weight category.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I can say yes, that's why the gym, why so many people highlight sports as the main niche for this kind of activity. Again, in the gym, there are two options there. Either you are, so to speak, honest with yourself, or you are not honest with yourself. Who exactly do I call not honest with themselves? These are people who start using enhancement drugs, specifically steroids, to get quick results. That is, you get quick results, but over time those results fade away. You don't consolidate it.
Plus, there are major side effects for your health.
It's the same if you create side effects in trading. Those intoxicating quick results can go to your head, and as a result, you'll lose your entire deposit and end up with nothing. It's the same here. If you stop using those substances, you'll lose your results just the same, part of your progress. Or there are those who train naturally, as it's called, so to speak. So these people approach their chosen path more purposefully and persistently from the start, the path they've chosen for themselves. So you either want to have a beautiful, healthy, strong body, or you want to have an overdeveloped, not always attractive body, but you'll be healthy and everyone will look at you as someone healthy. But again, specifically about the gym, I'll say that when I started going to the gym 2 years ago, I couldn't even imagine that today, in three exercises squat, deadlift, and bench press I would be lifting a total of nearly 400 kilograms. I mean, I simply couldn't have imagined that. But all of this is the result of my hard work training 3 times a week. It's exactly the same with trading.
How long have you been trading?
I got into trading relatively recently, a little over a year ago. I also got acquainted with all of this kind of by chance. I was visiting a friend once and saw something on his computer. It was a chart, so I asked, "What is this? How does it work?" I mean, basically, I had seen charts before, but I never really wondered about someone actually sitting there and working with them. He just gave me a brief explanation and I got interested. I started asking him questions. How does it work? What is it for? What does it give you? And when I heard that this really is an opportunity, so to speak, to work without leaving home, which is very important nowadays, I think, in our rapidly developing society, where many professions are moving to remote work and many are being replaced by AI, finding your own niche where you can earn a stable income is crucial because sooner or later, all manual labor jobs, except for those that specifically require hands-on work, will eventually be replaced by AI.
But won't AI replace trading? What do you think about trading bots?
Think no. Trading can't be fully replaced because the market doesn't always operate the same way. It doesn't always follow the same patterns. You can program a pattern into AI for it to track a certain sequence, but if there's even a slight deviation, the system will break down and won't be able to correctly identify or interpret the situation, which will lead to a negative outcome. So yes, that's exactly how I got acquainted with trading as well. So a friend of mine gave me a tip and told me about it. I looked into it and started studying. And I took my first steps about, yes, a little over a year ago.
Just like 2 years ago, you couldn't have imagined that you'd be lifting over 400 kilograms, a total of 3 exercises combined. Could you have imagined a year ago that trading would now be bringing you income?
When I started doing it, to be honest, I didn't think about that. I tried not to think about money. Yes, of course, those thoughts did cross my mind.
So it was just genuine curiosity?
Yes, yes. At first, yes, of course. When I got my first coupon on a futures contract on the MEX exchange, I don't really remember. I was just topping up, just adding funds from DTC, just putting money in, like dollars for myself. So they gave me a coupon actually on the futures contract. That's when I decided to give it a try. So that's kind of how my interest started to grow. Naturally, I lost that coupon pretty quickly. So there was no way I could make any profit there, of course, because by the time I figured out what to click and where, the coupon was already gone. Yeah. And actually, if you look at it, of course, I could have guessed about this maybe 6 months ago that there was some money to be made, that I would make money from this. At first, when you get into this, you think about making big money, but that's a mistake a lot of people make. Chasing after that, you just keep losing, 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 losing. A year ago, I couldn't even imagine this.
Got it. Tell me, what made you switch to the prop model? You started and you touched a bit on how you got started. And as I understand it, you were using your own money at first, that you were trading with your own funds. Then how did you switch to the prop model? As for the
Prop model in general, yes, as I mentioned earlier, I received a bonus. That is for futures. I don't remember exactly. I think it was $100. They gave me something like that, or maybe $50. I won't lie. Something like that, as I mentioned earlier. It ran out very quickly for me. It went to zero while I was figuring out what to press and where. When you first get into this niche, you really need to at least watch some basic breakdowns to understand how things work, what to press and where. A lot of people think it's all intuitive. I feel like, no, and here's my first balance. And basically, the money I ended up giving to the market, let's put it that way, I invested in myself. They really were there, yes, those were small balances. I even remember that I started to get the hang of it a little bit. I literally deposited about $100 to $150 on the exchange. So I think I was trading Ether, the cryptocurrency ETH. I traded and I managed to take out about $400. I felt, so to speak, the thrill of victory. And honestly, I got emotional. My salary had just come in. I was like, okay, I get it now. Now I'm going to do everything right. And just like that, my entire salary disappeared really quickly. Honestly, it was a tough month. I even had to borrow a bit of money from friends and acquaintances just to have something to eat. Of course, I got an earful from my girlfriend at the time. No one appreciated what I did, but the fact is, it was a valuable lesson that you should never give away your last. Trading doesn't forgive. Basically, it's a ruthless ecosystem that won't forgive you. For example, if you make a mistake at work, you just get fined, say, 1,000 rubles or 2,000, whatever, and you're forgiven, so to speak. You just pay a little money. But here, you could end up paying with your entire deposit and be left with nothing. That's why risk management is, in general, a very important topic, which we'll also discuss. Definitely. So, yes, those very first encounters, those initial touches were quite tough, indeed painful, I'd even say.
but I think they taught you a valuable lesson.
Of course.
Those mistakes. At what point did you realize that being systematic is more important than intuition? So we've talked about the very first mistakes. All right, let's keep talking about mistakes. And let's discuss the ones that came after.
Well, I heard about systematic symptomatization and mistakes. Mistakes, they're necessary. In any case, every mistake you've worked through and analyzed is a point of growth for you. I've always said this because the best thing you can gain is experience. I've heard it many times from different people, this phrase, learn from my mistakes. Honestly, that's the dumbest phrase I've ever heard in my life. Let me explain why. Everyone has their own point of view, meaning that each person who makes a mistake does so in a particular situation. That is, they make decisions based on their own internal feelings, motivations, and certain other factors. And you can't compare yourself to someone else because you can never know for sure. You can never know for sure what someone was thinking or feeling at a particular moment. You can only try to understand or listen to them. But truly learning from someone else's mistakes, gaining experience from that, is impossible. Again, as I've said before, you might get some useful insight for yourself in a certain area, yes, but you can't actually learn from it. And I try to analyze my own mistakes myself. If I don't understand what my mistake was, I now have quite a few more experienced colleagues because, again, after joining this ecosystem, you start meeting and getting to know people. If I figured out my mistake, I've already become better than I was just 2 or 3 minutes ago. Because I shouldn't make that mistake anymore since I've already worked through it, I've already understood what I did wrong, and I don't want to go back to that point. As for intuition, I would say, in this context, I'd call the golden mean a good approach. That's when your intuition is developed to such an extent that it doesn't let you make this or that mistake.
Yes, when you have so much knowledge and experience that your intuition actually takes on qualities of a system.
Of course, yes, it seems to you that you did it intuitively, but in reality, it's no longer intuition, it's your experience, which you gained precisely from the mistakes you analyzed and worked through, often spending a lot of time, nerves, and energy on it. Because everyone, I think, faces this in their life. When you're trying to figure something out, you don't understand why it's happening, and you just feel like everything is against you, everything is bad. But then you come back, take a breath, sit down again, go over it, and finally understand. You end up laughing at that mistake yourself and move on.
Listen, I once heard an adapted version of the proverb about my mistakes. Don't repeat my mistakes, make your own. I've always liked that one more too. But this is the first time I've heard intuition described this way. That's interesting. That's something to keep in mind, so to speak.
Thank you.
I can't remember if we finished talking about the prop firm. So, how did you end up at the prop after trading your own money and all those arguments with your wife?
Looks like we got a bit sidetracked. But honestly, when it comes to prop trading, some friends told me about it, and then I saw it again. Actually, the same guy who got me into trading in the first place, you could say. I asked him, like, man, how could you lose so much money? I said, isn't there any other way out of this situation? And then he told me about this thing called prop trading, where you can buy a certain account and there will be a set amount of money on the balance. And you trade with it. At first, it seemed to me, well, it seemed kind of strange. I mean, you give someone money and they give you a lot of money in return. Roughly speaking, you pay $150 and they give you $10,000. So, yeah, it just seems kind of weird. I think for an average person, especially if you're not familiar with this at all,
It raises suspicions.
yeah, exactly. You start thinking it's some kind of scam. Like, it just can't be. It's also strange. But again, I asked for some links, did some research, read up, watched some things. There are a lot of prop firms. They're all different, with different conditions and different rules in any case. So a prop firm, one way or another, obviously pursues its own profit. Any business has to pay off to make a profit, but an honest prop firm, the companies give you the opportunity to earn in the same way, not like in pay to win computer games, for example, where you pay to win. No. Here everything is fair and absolutely transparent. You get your share of what you've earned with your own skills. That is, after reaching a certain account level, my friend explained, showed me, logged in, took a look, started trading. It didn't work out right away. Of course, I blew some accounts too. Naturally, I got familiar with the different parameters you use to track your progress, like the maximum daily loss, that is, the most you can lose in a day, and how much you need to earn to move on if, for example, there are several account phases. So how much you need to make to move to the next stage of the account, or if it's a single phase, how much you need to earn to advance to the next stage. Trading on a real account, all these conditions, there's really a lot to it. That's why at first trading seemed difficult, but again, I figured it out as I went along. Now, I understand it all pretty easily, I use it myself, and I recommend it to my friends and acquaintances who want to try or are just starting out in trading. It's really better to start at this stage than, say, with just $100. You deposit it, and often you end up losing it all within a day.
Well, maybe you don't always lose it, but still, $100 is a very small amount. And even if you're a good, consistent, and stable trader, the returns from that amount will still be small and barely noticeable. You mentioned that you studied a lot. Prop firms. Tell me, have you ever had any negative experiences? Or maybe you yourself have had such an experience.
Yes, of course. And friends and acquaintances have told me about unfair conditions in prop firms, various ones. Again, there were hidden pitfalls that came to light, like when they would just add a loss to your account. There was a situation where someone had a buffer of about $300 to $400, and yet they just closed his account. So there have been such examples. I also had a personal example when in Europe, I also went through a phase there, but they didn't count it for me. They added, if I remember correctly, about $1,000. Honestly, I had to, well, I'm telling you approximately, I won't lie. These are rough numbers just to make it easier to calculate. About $1,000 was closed, I think, with 5% and 10%. That's it. So I passed, I log in, refresh my account, and at first, commissions weren't specified for me. In MT5, there were no commissions. So I look, and the profit is only 1,000. $23, something like that. Literally half an hour later, they calculate the commission for me, and the profit is already 950. I enter the next trade, and the commission just starts eating up the profit, basically. With this geometric progression, it's impossible for me to pass the account. In the end, so I traded there, made about $2,500 on top, and it turns out that every time they would either just increase the amount needed to reach the next phase, that is to get a funded account, or they would simply eat up the profit with commissions. In the
Process.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I look at my dashboard and it shows that the required amount has been reached. And literally a couple of hours later, after I go run some errands and come back thinking that by the time I return, the account will be issued and I can check how things are going, I see that the amount is no longer the same. For example, if I needed 1,000, now it shows 990. There have even been cases like that. In the world of prop trading, not all companies are honest either, because there are those who want to build a good community, really, where everyone can earn income. Profit, meaning that both the prop company and the traders, who can later, for example, invite their friends and acquaintances, teach them so that these same traders would also come to this prop company and contribute in the same way. Income, so that both the newcomers and the company itself would profit from this. But there are also those who just want to make money by selling accounts. Unfortunately, that's the case.
What criteria do you use now when choosing a prop company, and why did you end up choosing us, joining our team? We're very pleased to hear that. I'll tell you more about it.
But honestly, in general, I look at, well, right away. That is, if all the rules are fully open on the website, if everything is clearly spelled out, I generally track how transparent the prop company is, how much you can actually ask about. So support, how it works, is the first thing I pay attention to. So I read the FAQ. These are the common answers to questions, always, because there have been prop firms where it just doesn't make sense at all. No point.
No fuck, no problem.
Yes, conditionally so. Because, well, that's just weird. That is, a person in principle always has some questions. That is, a person in principle is such a creature that we often live with questions. That is the meaning of life there and so on. And when you log in, you don't see answers to frequently asked questions, but that's already something to think about. Here I found everything I needed. Support answered my literally silly questions just as quickly. Well, those were just test questions from me and on top of everything. So basically, as I found out, a friend is in the chat, and someone he knows sent me a link to the Funded Way channel. I saw that the CEO is always active there, responds to comments, so you can actually have a conversation. And it was nice to find out that the person is from the CIS. From the CIS, so basically I checked where the company is registered. The company is registered in Dubai. Dubai is a hub for us. Right now, it's kind of the center of the global economy, let's say, especially for cryptocurrencies, an unofficial one, so to speak.
I figured you were, say, right now, the center of the SIS.
Yeah, that's right. So it turns out that the companies are registered in Dubai. Honestly, I've never heard of any of them being caught in a scam or anything like that because things are taken very seriously there. There can be very serious consequences specifically for the person who opens it. Because of this, a certain level of trust has formed since the company is open. Not somewhere in Cyprus or some unclear place, not a shell company, but a real full-fledged company that's built for the future. And
Was that the deciding factor when you chose your fund? Yes.
yes, of course. I mean, honestly, I don't really see the point in trading with a shell company because today you might trade and literally tomorrow they could just take everything away from you, not pay you out. So you've wasted your time, the most valuable resource we have, in my opinion, and in the end, you get nothing. So really, what's the point? You've spent your time and nerves and ended up with nothing. And you even spent your own money.
Yes, that's true. You always need to be careful when choosing a partner, no matter what field that partner is in. Let's talk a bit about your trading, about your strategy. We'll move on to the main section. How would you briefly describe your strategy? Let's imagine you only have 1 minute. Tell us, what is your strategy about? Or one of them?
Basically, my strategy is based on technical analysis mixed with smart money concepts. If I put it simply, I trade from liquidity levels. The quickest explanation is that I trade based on liquidity levels, using technical analysis tools as an addition. I've created my own mix, so to speak, because most people mainly trade either only with smart money concepts or only with technical analysis. There's also the QT theory, which is offered by a Western trader. QT trading is when you use the quarter theory, meaning the theory of quarters based on time intervals. Honestly, I haven't really gotten into that yet. I haven't really delved into it. I just know there's a Western trader who uses it. Dow is really promoting this theory a lot. I actually know someone who trades with it quite successfully. Maybe I'll study it in the future. But at the moment, I use liquidity levels. I trade from these liquidity levels, points of interest, or order blocks.
Got it. Can you share your screen and show us a trade that would illustrate your logic?
Yes, of course. Well, then we can break down, for example, how I passed the account specifically on Funded Vay on your platform.
Great, let's do it.
One phase. So here my trades will be shown. I prepared the chart in advance just in case you asked. I'll show you now. So my first trade was on gold. I took a long position. I'll show you everything now. So, well, here in general, if we look at the higher time frames, we had an uptrend. This was a very simple trade, basically from two liquidity levels, that is, upon reaching them. So here we previously had a test of this liquidity level, which was formed by this block. That is a point of interest, or an order block, as it's also called. But for myself, I call it a point of interest, meaning a place where liquidity is concentrated. If you look earlier on the chart here, you can notice that limit orders were being absorbed here. Accordingly, there is liquidity there, so for me this served as a small signal. The fact is that sales are coming from here, so accordingly there's interest here, interest from sellers, not buyers. Accordingly, we had 3 tests of this level, after which there was a liquidity grab. Here, additionally, if you look, this level acted as a support level. We used this order block, bounced off it, then tried again to break through this point of interest level, but couldn't do it exactly. Also, so there was a return to this level, and from it we saw a reaction at the point of interest, specifically right here. I was building a position here because I was confident that we would come back to this point of interest again. I was building up from this order block my order blocks or points of interest, and I don't just mark them the way many people do, for example, just with the candle itself. But if it was a bullish candle, meaning upward, I also mark the upper wick of the candle, a green candle, simply put. If it was a bearish candle, meaning downward, which is shown as black on my chart, I mark the lower wick. But many traders, both beginners and even experienced ones I often see, don't mark this wick either at the bottom or at the top. But there's also liquidity here, and it's built in. The price also bounced from here, simply put. Here we had an uptrend, meaning we were trading with the trend from this block. I entered here, so to speak, as my point of interest, which I had calculated. I sold, waited to see how far it would go, the movement continued, I entered, and got the result. Accordingly, the take profit here, if you look, was $369. On this trade, I took profit. We had a trade on BTC. To be honest, I mostly trade locally, intraday. I don't really go for any global ranges yet, because with my current level, I still find it a bit difficult. Intraday trades are short, meaning working with the local trend is easier for me at this point, and that's exactly what we have here as well. As before, the trend was downward, and the lows kept getting updated after reaching this point of interest. Again, we couldn't break through it, leaving a long wick and candles behind. In other words, positions were closed out, and accordingly, after we exited this order block or point of interest. As I mentioned earlier, I entered a short on the second candle with a stop just above this significant local high that we meticulously set here, so if my original idea would have been completely invalidated, in other words, my initial concept would have become entirely irrelevant, or to put it more simply, utterly invalid. I would have just taken a stop loss, but again, it's all about risk management. My stop was set with a 1-to-2 ratio, so my position was 2RR. I wanted to take it. And accordingly, basically the risk management here was set up so that even if the position got stopped out, nothing terrible would happen. In other words, I would still be, so to speak, in the game. So here it's the same approach. Working with the downtrend after we left, right here, it's exactly the same. Point of interest. Why exactly do I take this particular candle, for example, and not this lower one? So this is the last green candle before the drop. This is when the trend starts to go down or when it starts to go up. This is the last candle, meaning the black one, before the rise. Accordingly, right here we had a drop, and from here the rise began. So this is where people started buying. We reached this point of interest, and from this point of interest, we got a reaction. In other words, we couldn't break through it, leaving yet another new point of interest. If you look at it this way, one engulfed the other, so to speak. So even the stop loss, if you pay attention, even if I set a second point of interest here, this one, my stop loss is still above this level. So for example, if we had come to the point where right here we had, if the reaction had come from this candle, I would have immediately considered it in terms of risk management, meaning, but I still believe that we would see further development, meaning a continuation of the downtrend, as there were no signs of a trend reversal. We didn't have any before this. Here, for example, we updated, meaning here the lows were the same, and let's say we gradually started updating the highs and lows, but the highs were still at the previous levels. We didn't actually update it, we just took out this level, updated this one, and that's it. There was no further development. Accordingly, the trend remains downward. That's why I entered a short from here as well, right down to the point of interest, somewhere down here. I never hold all the way down. I always aim for the upper boundary. This approach is more reliable, tested over, I'd say, the last 7 months. So when I used to hold all the way like that, I can say from experience, when I aimed for a full closure at the entire point of interest, there were times when we'd get a reaction, literally right at the start of the point of interest, and the price would reverse since people were buying in here. So basically, that's the fundamental logic. The lower the price, the more profitable it is to buy. It's like, I don't know, apples at the market or eggs at the store, for example. I still believe that the basic principles of trading are simple and right on the surface. After all, it's a market one way or another. There is a market. We encounter the market in one way or another every day, whether it's going to the store, for example. The greater the interest, accordingly, the higher the price. The less interest there is in a certain type or group of goods, the lower the price. These are the basic principles of economics that are taught in school. Well, we studied them, though honestly, I don't know if they still do now. So my logic is mainly based on this, on basic principles. So the next trade is profitable. I showed it. Let me show you.
Yeah, let's really break down this particular trade where
Where did you get stopped out? This will actually be interesting, how I work through my mistakes. So this was with BTC, and right here, honestly, I'll tell you, I went against the market, against my own basic principles, to be honest, but the day wasn't very successful. For me, this particular trading day was basically like that because I kept trading. Besides the Fanat account, I was also trading on my personal one. To be honest, I opened trades on my personal account too, but thanks to sticking to my risk management, I didn't have any major losses. And here is where the mistake was. After we reached this point of interest, I assumed there would be a reversal point here, but at the same time, everything was indicating that the trend was downward, so a reversal point here was unlikely. If you open a higher time frame, on the 16th, you can see it was a prolonged and extended move. So if you open the 4-hour chart further, let me mark it like this. It's easier to see visually.
what time interval is that? What time frame?
I'm showing the 4-hour chart now. So here, if you look further, we have here, it's the same, but these are higher levels. I also use them in trading. So here, in the point of interest, at that moment, we hadn't reached the main level yet. So here, I assumed there would be a reversal, even though there weren't enough prerequisites for that reversal yet. There just wasn't enough for it. This is working with higher time frames, and the approach is basically the same. But here, I thought this was the point of interest and that we would still take it out. Even if I had taken this point of interest as the main one, we still didn't even reach it. If you look closely, we actually stopped just short of it. So accordingly, people started buying here. But at this level, buying was already unprofitable. In fact, even a bit earlier. So in such situations, for beginners, that is, for those who manage risks fairly well, for example, I recommend, and I myself have decided, that I set my entry strictly at the point of interest, that is, at the order block. But honestly, in the past, I used to do things a bit differently. I would leave a little margin, just a little bit, literally just enough to cover the spreads. This time, to be honest, I didn't do that. I didn't leave any margin. Well, that's exactly what happened. My carelessness let me down this time, because here I did get a take profit. Yes, at 1.82, not 1.9, almost just a bit less, but I would have made a profit. So the main point here is, first of all, I was trading against the market. That's what I did. Secondly, I was a bit careless with my trading that day, meaning I acted without enough caution. If I had been more careful, if I had left a little margin, for example, if I had set things up that way, checked all the higher time frames like I usually do, I probably would have hit my take profit that day, or at least closed the trade. And on top of that, to be honest, I wasn't monitoring the trade, I just left it and walked away. When I came back, I had already hit my stop loss. If you look at it, the time interval was actually pretty short. It happened literally within an hour, I got stopped out. So I didn't even have the chance to close it at break even, the so-called BE. That's when, after entering a trade, for example, at the entry point, I would move my stop loss somewhere up here, for instance, to this level to make sure I at least cover the commission and close the trade at zero if I made a mistake. But I didn't do that. I didn't take those steps, unfortunately. So this is yet another reminder for me that I really do need to keep an eye on my trades from time to time. On top of that, whenever possible, if you made the right choice, if you picked correctly, in 99% of cases, you can move your trade to break even. And that's my advice to all beginners. If you see an opportunity to move to break even, don't be afraid. Go ahead and do it. It's better to end up with a zero position than to take a loss of, say, 100, 150, or even 200 to 300. This way, you're protecting yourself, so don't give in to greed. I can also show you another trade, the one where I received a payout. I entered with a very small volume on your platform. So here, what we have is basically this is our point of interest. We exited there after about 1 to 3 minutes. If we look at the 1 or 3 minute time frame, here we got a consolidation above this point of interest. I set my stop here, that is below this local minimum, since it was the lowest point after exiting the block, and we held the position, and specifically to this point, although of course you could have held it further, but again, following my strategy, honestly, as I mark it on the chart, in reality it was something like this. I leave a little bit for small spreads there. And on top of that, after this first 50-minute candle, my position was moved into a small profit, so even if there had been a reversal. But here, if we refer to the toward line again, that is, we completely inverted this FWG. If you take it into account, I don't really use it, I just notice it. Here we inverted this FWG, which also served as a signal for me that it was possible to enter the trade, meaning that we were about to exit now, to this point of interest, and possibly the movement would continue further from there. So here I took my profit. The trade was for a very small amount, something around $350. It turned out to be about that.
Got it? Great. Thank you for explaining everything in such detail. It was interesting to hear your perspective. Continuing on the topic of losing trades, tell me how you deal with the series of losses. Do you ever have emotional setbacks, and do you track your emotional state at those times? How do you cope?
Initially, I think everyone, when they first start down this path, faces a series of losses. It's inevitable. For me, honestly, things went a little differently at first. Maybe because of some natural quick-wittedness. To be honest, I actually had a good winning streak at the beginning. I had about 17 trades, 15 of which were profitable, but that played a cruel joke on me, just like a losing streak would. Honestly, it wasn't any better. I'm not going to say I was getting any payouts or anything like that. I was just passing the account, trading for about a week and making plus 8 to 9%. Basically just the first phase. I blew the second phase the very next day. So for me, it worked in the opposite direction. The idea is pretty much the same, I think, as with a losing streak. Of course, you feel terrible about it. You start thinking the whole market is against you because just recently everything was working out and now nothing is going right. You feel broken, you don't want anything, it's raining outside, and let's just say your soul is in pain. Basically, you get nothing good out of it, no positive emotions at all, no roses, so to speak. At first, you often can't even see any points for growth yourself. You start thinking the whole world is against you, that the market is against you. It's like as soon as you enter a trade, the whole market crashes. Yeah, exactly. It's that psychological pressure you start to feel because you're using your own money. I mean, to put it bluntly, if you're just trading on a demo account, when you enter a trade, you really don't care at all. You don't feel any tension. hmm
Psychology changes when you switch to a prop model, and your attitude toward trading changes as well.
Of course, because here you have the right to make mistakes. Even if you have a losing trade, nothing terrible really happens. So, yes, I understand that I lost some dollars, but again, it's all about risk management. Before that, I had successful trades. I knew today was a bad day, but that doesn't mean tomorrow will be bad too. So you just need to pull yourself together, take a look, reassess, wait for your setup, enter the trade with confidence, and not put pressure on yourself because if something doesn't go according to plan. So I've had trades where, for example, something like this happens. You enter here or here, somewhere around here, for instance, and everything seems to be going towards your take profit. Then the price drops, almost hits your stop, and then with just one candle, it closes. Again, for example, maybe you entered somewhere here. You waited, so you entered around here, waited for it to move in this direction. It almost reached your stop, and then there's a sharp reversal. So All of this is about psychology, about managing your emotions. Honestly, I can't really recommend any resources, books, or anything like that. To be honest, I think it's much better to have a conversation with yourself. In my opinion, that's very effective. Yes, maybe from the outside it seems a bit strange, but I think in general, people who achieve some kind of success in trading or really just smart or brilliant people in general, they're all a bit unusual. And there's nothing shameful about talking to yourself. You need to make yourself understand that you are your own friend and companion, not your opponent or enemy, even in the case of some kind of failure or lack of success. You always have yourself first and foremost, whether you have close people who support you or not. Everyone's situation is different. Again, I'm not talking about anyone in particular.
I'm not hinting at anyone.
Well, yes. Again, I'm not hinting at anyone. I'm not trying to say that something is wrong with someone because everyone has their own life path and it can be difficult in its own way. But in any case, the main thing is not to give in to your emotions when something doesn't go according to plan. It's absolutely normal for things not to go according to plan.
However, here it is absolutely crucial to consistently maintain a delicate balance between frequently adjusting your protective stop-loss orders and steadfastly adhering to your originally chosen, well-defined trading strategy.
Yes, well, in any case, at the beginning of your journey, even if, roughly speaking, out of 10 trades, 9 are unsuccessful, 9 are unsuccessful, it can turn into a situation where you gain as much experience as you wouldn't have if those 9 trades had been successful, because you won't notice those mistakes. In many cases, that's when you start gambling, right? So you start gambling, like, damn, up it goes. Everything goes up and it really does go up, for example. And then again, to put it simply, the price goes up and you're like, yeah, 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 I was right. I knew it. I got it. Even though in reality, you were just gambling and you didn't actually gain anything from it. So what you got from it was a lack of any useful information for yourself, just thinking next time for sure. You think, I'll get in now. It'll be great. Everything will work out. But in reality, it doesn't. In reality, it's still all about management. That's how I see it. It's about risk management, balance, commitment to your own idea. And even if you see that your idea is, let's say, inverted, meaning your idea is destroyed, you need to be able to close the deal in time instead of hoping, so, no, 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 I'm wrong. You have to believe in yourself. That's also very important. I also often have friends, buddies, and I sit with them and I can see it. Someone explains their idea to me and I tell them, listen, bro, your idea, it's done. I mean, it just can't work at this point in time. I tell them it's better to just get out, lose those $30 to $40, but exit the trade. You'll find your setup again and you'll enter again. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe in a week. It happens differently every time. It depends on how many trading instruments you use because trading the same instrument every day, I think you could just go crazy doing that. No, we sat there watching too, and then we were like, damn, we should have done what you said, and so on. It's not about me trying to tell you that I'm smart. The point is, I've just already dealt with this, and I'm giving you advice on how to avoid it. So that's another part of the problem.
Well, like we said, don't learn from others' mistakes, learn from your own. So,
Well, of course, yeah. But this going back to the question of mentorship, not everyone is ready for that mentorship yet. But that's another issue as well. I mean, if you really dig deeper, not everyone is psychologically ready for someone to give them advice. Some people have this ingrained belief, right? That you're the best, you're the greatest. So again, this comes from upbringing, it carries over. But until, let's say, the market gives you a couple of slaps on the nose, nothing will change. But that's for the biz.
it was helpful that you showed trades specifically from inside our challenge. Remind me, how many tries did it take you to pass it?
I'm buying the challenge on your platform for the second time. The first time, to be honest, at first I was just figuring out the panel because I was used to, before that, I was trading on MT5. At first, it wasn't possible to trade on MT5. There was a panel like this one.
Which terminal do you prefer for trading?
I'm just used to MT5 in general. Well, again, I'm used to trading on MT5 simply because from the start,
You started with it?
yeah, I started with it originally. So it's not because I really liked it that much. It's MT, but it's my MT. Yeah, I just use it for practice, really. Honestly, MT is just more convenient for me here, simply because I'm used to the design. If you compare it to TradingView, oh, I mean, if you look at the design, I just prefer it. It's more familiar and convenient. The platform is easier to manage, especially when I first started trading, like on Defunded Way, when there wasn't an option to do it through the website. But there are also some handy features there, like being able to see the spreads right away, what the platform calculates. Specifically on the website, you can immediately see the spreads when you enter a trade. So, how much do you need to take into account? In this regard, yes, it's very convenient. And overall, the website is designed in such a way that everything is pretty intuitive. There aren't really any issues. Plus, I've noticed it keeps getting updated with new features being added, like sliders, so you can check things out. So for new users, it's actually very convenient and interesting.
So I don't remember, did we answer the question about how many attempts it took to complete the challenge?
Pasha specifically started with the website. Yeah, he started talking about that. To be honest, I failed the first one. I failed the first challenge, honestly, because I didn't really understand how to use the platform at first. I was also figuring things out there, like with the volumes. I messed up a little there. Uh,
Well, and at the very beginning, you also had an unfamiliar terminal, probably because of that too.
I was dealing with the volume there, meaning you could immediately calculate the risk factor. So I guess I didn't quite understand how to use it correctly. So maybe I should have looked for a similar demo or, for example, contacted support. There you can get a demo account just to take a look or have someone explain it. But I thought I'd figure it out myself quickly. Yeah. But what happened was I ended up opening the wrong volume, the wrong risk percentage, and it turned out that just a 50-cent move liquidated my account. I was like, well, okay. But I passed the second one. I got to the funded stage, so I requested my first payout.
Nice. Tell me about the payout. Did it come quickly? Were there any additional checks? Basically, anything you want to share?
There were no problems at all, really. I passed the challenge, and everything in the dashboard updated pretty quickly. Again, I can probably attribute any delays to our internet. Unfortunately, that's just the kind of issues we have in Russia right now. The fact is, without a VPN, sometimes something doesn't work, but again, I have no complaints about the platform itself. These are widespread issues. So, everything updated quickly. Trades showed up fast. I could track everything. Let me talk about the payout process from the moment. So, from the time I requested the payout to when I received it, actually, I requested a payout just today, right before the interview. It was processed right after I passed the challenge.
Right.
Yes, after passing the account, that is, as soon as I requested the payout, your CEO reached out to me, invited me to take part in this event, and of course, I agreed. Why not? Again, as far as I know, traders usually don't like to share their successes and achievements, but for me, I don't know. I actually enjoy it. Maybe my experience uh, will help beginners who decide that this really is a company worth choosing, worth starting with. Why not? So yes, I literally received it today. I can log into Mex right now.
Yes, I see.
Deposit. I can open Transcan to show that it's been credited.
You're awesome. I believe you.
Yes, just an hour ago, literally. Well, that's when I requested it. I mean, I put in the withdrawal request at around, not to lie, probably around 9 a.m. Moscow time. But here the time is shown in UTC, which is +3. So 9 plus 3, that makes 12. Well, I placed the order at 9:30, so just recently. I received it within 3 hours.
Wow, that's cool. For New Year's, I'll be painting at Santa Claus's place. Challenge. I want to do that too.
Yeah. Well, for the new challenge, actually, there are some ideas for that too, again, but for now, we'll see how the markets behave, what happens. In general, the markets are interesting right now. It's that pre-New Year period. Honestly, I had slightly different expectations for cryptocurrencies. I had different expectations for cryptocurrencies and in general for the markets as well. But it is what it is. Nothing we can do about it.
Thank you so much for agreeing to the interview. Great story. It's great that we managed to meet up so quickly. Now, give some advice to someone. Since we've decided to make this interview useful, what would you say to someone who's about to take on their first challenge? Just briefly. Maybe 3 essential rules for getting funded?
Always set your break even. Don't overestimate your abilities. If you hit your stop for the day, don't trade anymore today. Probably the most important thing, don't try to trade against the market. The market will punish you anyway. If you try to trade against it, the market will punish you. Be attentive in your analysis and everything will work out.
Let's move on to the Blitz round. Are you ready?
Yes,
Great, let's go. Favorite instrument?
my favorite trading instrument is the order block and I use FWB. And
What about something from Forex? From
from Forex, if we're talking about a trading pair, probably the euro and the pound.
Got it. That's actually pretty unusual. Interesting. A mistake you'll never repeat?
I won't put in my entire salary.
Okay. That's a very relevant one. What's the best insights you've had in the last 6 months?
This one's actually hard to answer quickly, but probably self-development specifically as an idea if you look at it that way. The more time you spend, the better you become in your previous field, no matter what it is.
If you were entering the market today, what's the first thing you would do? If you were starting not a year ago, but right now?
That's a good question. Most likely, I would start by learning the basics. Specifically, that's what I didn't do at first. I just started poking around here and there, so to speak. I would have read some, maybe I would have used chatbots like GPT or DeepSeek or something else to get some kind of foundation.
Do you use them now?
I do. Rarely for trading, but I do use them in my recent activities.
A New Year's wish?
Become better. Don't be afraid to start and try something new. Make time for yourself first and foremost, because you only have one life and there won't be another. And above all, spend the holidays with those who truly matter to you. Always be honest with yourself.
Thank you very much. That was very touching. Let's get back to the topic of work-life balance. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alex, for joining us. This was Katya from The Funded Way, and Alex, our trader, who received his payout today. We wish you happy upcoming holidays. We wish you all achievements and success. We'll be back. See you soon.